Good morning.
Good morning.
From Ouro Preto, a city that is considered to be the center of Brazilian colonial architecture, and you see beautiful buildings everywhere. Like, we just left our Airbnb and right next to our place, boom, a church. And there will be plenty of them. So we have chosen a few to show you today. The whole city is considered to be like an open air museum, and it is considered a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And I said there's no shortage of churches because there are 13 churches and 10 chapels in the whole city. So we have selected a few sites to show you, and let's head to the first one now.
So the first time I visited Ouro Preto was like 30 years ago. And we arrived here like last night, and I have to say the city is still beautiful. Like nothing changed. Well, it's not supposed to change, but the city is still really, really beautiful, as you're gonna see.
A quick note, by 30 years ago she means last year. She was 30 years. So while we are going to the first place that we wanted to show you, I'm also going to talk about the city and also show you a little bit how it looks like. Ouro Preto, as you can see, it's surrounded by mountains. It's inside a valley basically, and it's full of cobblestone streets like these and uphill. So it's not really easy to walk and drive. Actually, yesterday when we came, it was raining. It was very slippery. We were sliding a few times actually, going up by car. So it's the way the city is built. Also, Ouro Preto is a city that was very, very important during the gold rush in Brazil during the 18th century. It used to be called Vila Rica, which meant a rich village at that time. And then in 1823, Vila Rica got the status of a municipality, and the name was changed to Ouro Preto. The city is called Ouro Preto, which in Portuguese means black gold. And the reason for that is at the time, the gold that was found here in Ouro Preto had a layer of iron oxide on it that would make the gold look dark. It would have the color of like a black metal, but that was just a layer of iron oxide that was on the outside. But then this gave the city the name of Ouro Preto. Another interesting fact about Ouro Preto is the fact that it used to be the capital of the state of Minas Gerais before the capital was moved to Belo Horizonte in 1897. And as I talked about the mountains around the city, the elevation of the city is 1,100 meters above sea level. All right, so now we are in the most important square in Ouro Preto, which is called Praça Tiradentes. Tiradentes, the monument behind me, is dedicated to him. If you haven't watched our video from the city of Tiradentes, I'm gonna leave the link either on the screen or down below in the description, so you get all the details about Tiradentes. But the most important fact is that he was the leader of a movement. It was called Inconfidência Mineira at the time, and they were like kind of fighting the crown at the time, or the Portuguese colonial rule and the crown. So he was the leader, but unfortunately he was captured in Rio de Janeiro. He was hanged, and in order for the crown to make a lesson for everybody so nobody else dares to revolt against them, they brought his head here, and in this square right behind me, they were showing his head to everybody for the whole public to see, so they don't do the same thing. And the other parts of his body also, unfortunately, were cut and distributed in the city of Tiradentes that we visited. The square is dedicated to him, and over there you also have a museum for the movement of Inconfidência. That was his movement. So when you come to Ouro Preto, this is the main square that you should come and definitely visit. and one of the most important attractions. Now, the square being the focal point of the city, basically, it's always busy, and I think during these days that we are here, there is an event going on because they are putting up a stage right in front of the museum and even next to the statue. Another interesting fact that we saw that a lot of people talk about is that Tiradentes, the statue that is there, is just like a normal person, but in a lot of other pictures you see him with kind of military uniform, because he was the leader of a movement and he was fighting. Most of the time he was in military uniform, and he is actually considered a national hero in Brazil, and he is the patron of the military police, which is one of the main police forces in Brazil, in the honor of him as a national hero. But here in the square, he is not wearing the typical military uniform that he would be wearing all the time. We don't really know why, but this is the statue that they built in his honor and put it in this square. We just finished the visit from the museum. The entrance is free, you don't need to pay. The only thing is they don't allow you to film. So while I'm gonna continue talking about the museum, I'm gonna also put some of the shots that we took from inside of the museum. So we highly suggest that if you have time, you definitely visit the museum. It gives you a very, very good understanding of the history. And there are two floors. As you go through the different floors, you'll see furniture, you will see painting, you will see the clothes from that era. And another very, very interesting fact that I should mention about the building, as you can see, the first floor, all the windows, they have bars, metal bars. So this used to be a prison at some point, first floor, and second floor was what you would call today a city hall. So a lot of people say on the top floor they would pass the law, and then on the main floor or the first floor they would execute the law for the people to go to prison and be punished if they had committed any crimes.
One thing very interesting about the building is like everything is so big, like the windows, the doors, like the width of the walls, like it's really, really like impressive. And another thing that I learned today, that I might be wrong, but I think Portuguese people, they're very tiny, because their clothes, there is clothes inside that from that time, like it looks like for like kids, but no, it was for a person. And a lot of beds, and we don't know if it was for single or like a couple, but even the beds, the length of the bed, like everything was so tiny, and I think people were like very tiny at that time. I imagine like all the Portuguese people, because the things inside, it's like from the time of the empire. So one thing, that was something very interesting. There is a special room dedicated to Aleijadinho. Aleijadinho, we talk about him in more details in our video about Congonhas, where like he made like his masterpiece. But here also it's very interesting because there is some pieces of like a room dedicated for him as well.
And later on also in this video we will show you another place that he had worked, and it's a very interesting place to go and see. We are definitely planning to go there and show you more of his work. Now let's head to the next spot. as we were walking to go to our next destination, the next place that we wanted to visit, we came across this cute little bridge that is actually on top of this little garden, which is a botanic garden. Just wanted to show you. Unfortunately, we don't have time to visit it, but just to let you know that this also exists. The next place that is worth seeing if you have time when you're in Ouro Preto is this building. This building was owned as a private building, but then at some point years later, it became the place that in the city they would collect all the payments and taxes in this building, and that's why now it has the name of Casa dos Contos, which was where everybody's payments and tax payments had to be paid, and now it's a museum as well. The entrance is free. The municipality of Ouro Preto, it became the most populous municipality back then in Brazil in 1730s with 40,000 inhabitants. That at the time it was a lot of people. But then a few decades later, it even went up to 80,000 people. At the time, it was the most populous city in Latin America. And just to give you an idea, back then in Sao Paulo, which is now the biggest and the most populous city in Brazil, there were only 8,000 people. So 8,000 people in Sao Paulo, and here it was 80, 10 times. And also at that time in New York, you had around 40,000 people. So you get an idea about how much this city was attracting people to come here, because it was during the gold rush and everybody wanted to come here and settle here. That's why there is a lot of buildings, churches, and beautiful colonial architecture from that time, because it was attracting a lot of people. And right now in 2024, the city has almost around 75,000 people. So you can imagine, in the middle of the 18th century, it has 80,000 people. Then after that, because the gold rush was done, a lot of people left. The economic situation was not that good. So the population also decreased dramatically. And right now it is at around 75,000 inhabitants. We are now at the church called Nossa Senhora do Pilar. This is supposed to be one of the richest churches, as you will see shortly inside on the design. So we wanted to select this one for sure to be one of the churches that we visit. There is a ticket that you have to buy. The entrance is 15 reais per person. And now we're going to go inside, show you the inside. After we'll talk to you about the church a bit more. So this church is, as I mentioned, considered one of the richest churches because of the amount of gold that you see inside. Everything on the walls and the ornament, all of the design that you see, it is real gold. The irony is that despite all of that gold, you still have to pay 15 reais per person to go inside, but I think it's part of it also. There is a museum at in the basement of the church as well. If you go in, you can visit that too. It's included in the ticket that you buy. There are different sections on the sides of the church inside, and this is why the completion of the construction of the church took a long time, because so many different groups participated and each one was dedicated to completing one section of the church inside. And that's why inside it's very rich. There's so many different designs and a lot of different sections that kind of come together in harmony at the end when now you look at the finished product. So this is the church of Nossa Senhora do Pilar.
It's almost half a ton of gold just inside of this church. Like, yeah, that's crazy.
It is really interesting, which takes me to the next interesting point that I wanted to mention. During the ruling of the Portuguese here, and also during the gold rush in this region, more than 800 tons of gold were shipped to Portugal. And this is only the official amount, because there were some other amounts that probably the miners they stole or they didn't declare or anything. And this does not include the gold that is used in the construction of the churches here. That just in this one behind us, there is almost half a ton of gold in it. Another tip for you in Ouro Preto: if you find parking, park the car, leave it, because parking is very challenging. The downside of that is you have to go up and down the hills. Like here, for example, we came down from the stairs and now we have to go back, no? So you do a lot of exercise, be ready for that too. But it's really better to just leave the car and just walk everywhere. We are now in front of the church of San Francisco de Assis. This is one of the most important churches in Ouro Preto because I would say the most famous sculpture and architecture of the time from the 18th century, whose nickname was Aleijadinho, has designed and worked in this church. He was basically considered a bastard because he was a son of an illegitimate relationship that his father, who was a Portuguese highborn, had with his slave. And so basically Aleijadinho's mom was a slave and his father was a Portuguese architect actually. So in this church that you see behind, you have a lot of the signature designs that he had, like the head of the angel at the door, which back then they would not sign their work, but he would always leave this to mention or to somehow hint at the fact that he has designed and he has worked here. So this is considered another one of his great works. The church was designed and built by him, and even his father was involved in some of the work because he was also an architect. There is also the painting inside the church that was done with another one of very, very famous painters at the time called Master Ataiji, that has worked inside the church as well. Another fact that is very, very important and worth mentioning about Aleijadinho is that his health started deteriorating as he aged. And at the end of his life, he had lost the movement of his hands, his fingers. Still, they don't know what disease he had, but he could not really function that easily. But he still managed to create all of these masterpieces that each one speaks for itself. Each one is a beautiful work of art, and he was an architect, but at the same time he was also an artist and a sculptor. Most of the pieces that he made, the statues and the work that he did as a sculptor, he also used the soapstone, or what is called in Portuguese pedra sabão, which is the typical like dark greenish stone that until today it's used for also handcrafts, but he used that for all of his sculptures and all of the statues. There is an entrance fee of 15 reais per person to go in, and also make sure that you check the time that you want to visit. In the morning, I believe the church opens at, I think, 8 or 9, but until noon. Then from noon until 1:30 p.m. it's closed. So make sure that you plan ahead of time. By the time you get here, the church is open. Right across the street you will find the Artisanal market that is open most of the time. Every time we pass by it was open. You can find handcrafts, souvenirs, and the thing that is most common is products that are made by using the soapstone that I mentioned was the main material for Aleijadinho's work. And just look at them, they are beautiful. They use these designs, there are dishes, there are vases, everything. Really nice. Also, the city is really safe. Last night we passed by the Artisanal market and it was at night, it was raining. The streets were almost empty, but everything was left here in the square, and like they just covered them, but very nice. Yeah, nobody was there, like very peaceful and safe. One more thing I wanted to mention also about Ouro Preto is that besides all these historic sites that mostly have the colonial style architecture and Baroque style churches, if you want, there are also other activities like a whole bunch of waterfalls nearby that if you want to do it, you can. We are here only for one day, so we didn't have time for that, but there is that option as well if you want to go and visit some waterfalls. So the next church is the one behind me. It's called the Church of Nossa Senhora da Conceição. It also includes some of the works of Aleijadinho and also has the museum of Aleijadinho. So that's why we put it on the list for one of the churches that we wanted to visit, because we wanted to visit the museum of Aleijadinho. All right, we were visiting the church of Nossa Senhora de Conceição, and we got the school. And qual o nome de escola de vocês?
Maria Nascia.
Maria Nascia. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that was fun. Very nice kids, very sweet, and they were all like taking picture of the name of the channel and the QR code that we have, so they could all follow us and see themselves also. Very nice, beautiful. Now let's go visit the church. So you have to pay 15 reais for the entrance, but turns out because I paid one ticket for the entrance of the other church So we just had to pay one more ticket for Mariana to enter. And look at this beautiful church. And also the amount of gold that is here. My God, amazing. One interesting fact about this church is also that it was closed for almost 10 years because they were doing some restoration and they were making sure that it is in a good shape. So a lot of work was done during the 10 years that it was closed, and then it was reopened again in 2022. So behind the church you also have the museum, and you have the museum of Aleijadinho behind this church because he is also buried here. Here it's written his name, Antonio Francisco Lisboa, and Aleijadinho was his nickname. It's a little bit dark, but his year of birth, it's written 1738, but with a question mark because they're not sure if he was born in 1730 or 1738. But the year he passed away is 1814. So this is exactly where he is buried.
The whole floor in this church is graves of like people. Like you can see like numbers 9, 10, 11, 12. These are all people that helped build the church, and the families that actually helped build the church. And actually the more you contribute to the construction of the church, closer to the altar you would be buried. So number 9 here is Aleijadinho's father. He is buried here.
Number 9, right?
Yes, number 9
Yeah.
here.
So you see there are numbers on the floor, 7, 8, 9. Let me get closer to show you. Number 9. This is Aleijadinho's father's grave?
Yes, Aleijadinho's father's grave, which you can actually see that he contributed a lot for the construction because the altar is just there.
Yeah.
And I don't know why Aleijadinho is in the end of the church.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you. It's there, right over there where I was showing you the floor, the last one. So he's there.
I believe that it might be also because of the fact that he is a bastard. So they actually put him here, but not so close to the altar, even though like most of the design and everything in the city, in the whole city, it is done by him.
No, very interesting, definitely worth a visit. Another thing worth mentioning is the fact that we told you in the city there are 13 churches and 10 chapels. But why? Because during the 18th century, when there was the gold rush in this area of Brazil, a lot of people from different parts of Brazil, from Portugal, they all came here. But then they brought their beliefs with them also. Some of them, they were worshipping a saint, and some of them believed that somebody else did a miracle for them. So this created some sort of what they refer to as brotherhoods. Certain groups that each one was like, they were all Christian, but they had some sort of connection with each other, and that's why each one of the brotherhoods then They contributed in the construction of different churches here, and that's why you have 13 churches and 10 chapels in the city, because a lot of people came into the city and then they all wanted to be part of kind of like a community, so they can relate to each other, and that caused the city to have all of these churches and chapels. And besides the brotherhoods, there were also the slaves that unfortunately could not go to the other churches. They were not allowed to go to the other churches. So they built this church, which is called Igreja de Nossa Senhora de Rosário, or the Church of Our Lady of Rosario. This church is built by the slaves for the slaves. And even though all of these churches, they all have a Baroque style and design, this one is different. All the other churches, they are square and they have like straight lines. But this one, as you can see, it's round. And even inside, the wood railing that is around the benches is also round. Also, being a church built by the slaves, it is much, much simpler. There is no gold, there isn't any of the glamorous designs that you see in the other ones, because it was built by the slaves, and it's a very, very simple church.
But despite being simple, there is gold also inside, because they would smuggle some of them to actually donate to the church.
So for this church, you don't need to pay any entrance. Entrance is free. And as you can see, it is still beautiful, but it is not as fancy and luxurious as the others. There is one more church also that is called the Church of São Francisco de Paula. This one is on top of a hill, and usually people go at the end of the day for the sunset. But unfortunately today the weather is very cloudy, so we figured we won't have a very beautiful sunset, so we decided not to go there. So this ends our video in Ouro Preto. We really enjoyed it. We hope that you enjoyed it too. If you liked the video, give us a like, support us, and we'll see you in the next one.